Hello, one and all. Big updates in Indiana Feverland to get to. I apologize for getting to this so late. I had to cover Pacers 76ers yesterday. I had some family things yesterday, and today I got let go from one of my jobs. So getting to this now, but lots to get to in Feverland because on Sunday, 11 a.m., Christie Sides let go by the Fever. The coaching carousel in the WNBA is ruthless right now. If you count the Valkyries, the Golden State new team, over half of the WNBA teams currently on the head coaching hunt. Chicago let go of Teresa Weatherspoon, Christie Sides in Indiana, obviously, Kurt Miller in LA, Tanisha Wright in Atlanta, Stephanie White we found out today, which will certainly come up later, in Connecticut, and Latrissa Trammell in Dallas. Did I miss one? I might have missed one. Either way, several openings around the league right now in the WNBA. Oh, the Mystics. That's what I missed. Eric T-Ball with the Mystics. There's just so many teams trying to figure out their direction, their leadership as the league really changes and grows. The Fever before the Sun today with Steph White, which again we'll get to, were the latest team to do so over a month after their season ended, parting ways with Christie Sides. Look, I will say some opinion first before we get into raw analysis of what happened. I've covered the Fever since the Wubble. Marianne Stanley was the coach back then. By far, last season was the most competent they have looked as a basketball team. And the year before that was by far better than any of my first 3 years covering the team. Sides 2 years, obviously there was an infusion of talent. Aaliyah Boston in the lottery was a huge deal. Kelsey Mitchell continued to grow into an all-star, which Sides deserves some credit for, by the way. And they drafted Caitlin Clark. Huge additions, no doubt helped the Fever become a better team. I am much higher on Sides as a coach from the coverage perspective than the fan base is, I believe, because I saw how bad things were before. And I was very surprised that they moved on from her, but I can understand why, and I will tell you why later. But I will say I think people do not give her enough credit for the turnaround she had to do. Getting hired in 2022, Lynn Dunn's first thing, changing coaches, letting go of interim head coach Carlos Knox after she fired Marianne Stanley. During her first season, they needed a new coach. They needed somebody young to set a culture and grow the team from where they were to where they got to, right? They did not have the right culture for the team they had. The players at that time didn't love coming to work, honestly, and they grew into that, and they did then, and they got a lot better, going from 5 to 13 to 20 wins. Christie Sides tweeting on Sunday, "Leave it better than you found it," with a peace emoji. She certainly left the Indiana Fever better than she found it. Kelly Krauskopf, the new former Pacers GM, now Fever president, who was with the Pacers when Sides was hired, actually was advising Lynn Dunn a little bit during that coaching hire and liked Sides because Sides was an assistant back when Krauskopf, during her first stint as president of the Fever. But lots of overlap from Krauskopf that we'll have to get to later. But, I wondered where this could go when it got a month in. I thought Sides might be the coach next season. She had done a good job getting them better and maybe deserved a chance to run with the expectations the Fever had. They still decided to move on one day before the official start of new GM Amber Cox's tenure as the GM of the Fever, which started today, Monday, in Indiana. So that's the change. And if you want to say that this is on merit, that this team did not meet expectations, I would say, wow, they far exceeded my expectations. I think Sides said at times this season that 18 wins was about what she had kind of penciled in her head as a reasonable goal. They got to 20. I thought they would be the 8 seed this year before the season started and be somewhere in that 16 to 18 range that she described. Obviously, that was not the expectation of the fan base. But for me personally, I thought she did a pretty dang good job this year. I think people are very much blame the coach when things go bad, but praise the players when things go right. And there's always more of a balance in that. Now, that said, I just spent 4 minutes talking about the good things about Christie Sides because I do think she's a good coach, and I do think she deserves to have a job somewhere in the WNBA. That said, when she got hired, I explained this a little bit. What the Fever needed was a new culture and a development coach. Set an identity, get this team to play a certain way, get a culture in the door. They did that, right? They were more detail-oriented now. They are more focused on their workouts and individual development. They have a transition style. The first day we came into practice of training camp this year, we saw them working on transition, studying it on film all together. Big focus of their play. Once that clicked, especially with Caitlin running the show, things took off. They became the best offense in the W for the last 2 months of the season, right? That all matters a great deal. But we have not seen it, so we can't say we know for sure. But Christie Sides as the growth coach from a bad team to what the Fever are versus a coach that coaches a team that has massive expectations. Those are different jobs, right? Coaching really good teams. Sandy Brondello is very good at that. She was in Phoenix. She has been in New York. I think Sandy Brondello has had her, issues in the finals at times. She's very creative. She's led teams over the top. Obviously, Becky Hammond is excellent. Becky Hammond is excellent with great teams. The best of the best. Some coaches are better with good teams. Some coaches are better with developing teams. Curt Miller, I would put in the better with good teams group, although he's a wonderful development coach with bigs specifically. This is just my own opinion from years covering the league. And so, what I am receptive to, even though I thought Sides was a better coach the most, is that the Fever are now entering a new time of their team where they are not about they want to get better. Every team wants to get better all the time. But their main headlining goal for the coming seasons are not about improvement or growth or culture as much or all sorts of stuff like that. That all matter. Every team is trying to improve and get better and have a strong culture every single day. But the top of the list, if you made a rubric of stuff the Fever will care about when they analyze the 2025 season, the top thing will be winning games, winning lots of games, winning series, plural probably. They're that good now. They have a new front office. That is generally a sign that a coaching change could be coming. Kelly Kroskov did say some very nice things about Christie Sides when she was talking in her introductory press conference earlier this month. That doesn't mean anything, especially as the coaching carousel continued to spin, but I did think that was noteworthy. And when they made it a month in, I thought that Sides might be the coach next year. And yet here we are. The Fever now getting what their new leadership deems will be the right coach for where they are. And if they believe that a coach could be better at coaching the Fever to be a winner than Sides, that I understand. Not because I don't think Sides couldn't do it. I've just never seen it. I don't know that. And if there's evidence that someone that has done it before could do it here in Indiana, which I say because I'm in Indiana right now, then I get that thinking. I cannot fault that thinking. So now, what do the Fever do? What do they need? Because you do not do this to hire a first-time head coach. This is not a move made to hire some assistant or someone clever. I would get that if they didn't have as good of a season last year, but clearly the Fever want to run. They want to be one of, and I mean run as in run towards success. They obviously are running in terms of their basketball style. And so, any coach that has won something before, I think would be a logical candidate. Curt Miller, very good, obviously. Other coaches available are very talented. But the obvious one everyone will correctly and smartly point at is Stephanie White. And I'm glad that in some ways this video didn't happen earlier because we found out today the Connecticut Sun and Stephanie White have parted ways. So Stephanie White is currently a free agent, which is just remarkable because of her many ties to what's going on here, right? Born in Indiana. Obviously a big deal. College basketball, played at Purdue here in Indiana. Played in the W for the Fever for 5 years. Guess who was the president when she was the player? Kelly Kroskov. Coached at Ball State here in Indiana. Coached the Fever as an assistant for 4 years. Was the head coach of the Fever, including getting them to the finals for 2 years. Every WNBA stop with the Fever for her, Kelly Kroskov was here. Right? They clearly have a connection. Tons of ties to the state for White. I believe some of her family is still here. If she wanted to move on to co-coach somewhere else, and her home state job happens to be open, and the person that's hired her to do this job before just so happened to just get the front office job, and she's a proven winner in the W, has gotten the Fever specifically to the finals already, just had a great year with Connecticut. I said on this channel incorrectly that I thought Connecticut would reach the finals this year. Did a pretty good job with Vanderbilt even at the college level, right? A terrific coach. If that is what this is for, it makes a ton of sense. Stephanie White is a wonderfully good coach. And I think there's been some speculation about that being the case. And now it seems more concrete as Andy Costabile in the Chicago Sun-Times has done a ton of reporting on the coaching movement and Stephanie White potentially being the Fever's coach. And now she is available and the Fever's job is open. It does make a lot of logical sense. If that does not happen, T-Balts in Washington have won a championship. Curt Miller has done wonderful things in many stops. There are great coaches available, wonderful coaches available. Christie Sides is a wonderful coach. But what the Fever are doing now with the new front office, if that is what they are doing this for, they are making a head coaching change to get someone with experience, to get a winner. Stephanie White makes the most sense, and the connections are endless. Endless. We've seen this with Kelly Crosskopf before. I wrote a whole story on this. What makes her such a natural fit to me, beyond that she's a wonderfully good basketball executive with the Fever, is she took the Fever from, she was the first president of the Fever, growing them from literally their first year to, the franchise that they are. And she went through it. They drafted Tamika Catchings. They slowly added the right talent. They slowly added the right coach. They won a championship with Catch. That should be the goal with Leah and Caitlin in the door. And it's now Kelly Crosskopf's job to figure out what that takes, whether that's roster moves, whether that's coaching changes, whether it's both. It's going to be both. Obviously, it's going to be both. And so she has earned the trust, I think, of everyone that she can do this and that what she does should be considered a smart move, and then the results will dictate whether it actually was or not. So I cannot fault anyone along the way to getting to this point. I liked the Sides hire when they did it. I think Sides did a good job here. I think she changed the franchise in ways that are meaningful. And I also think if you can get the right coach for where you are now as the Fever, you have to consider it, especially with new leadership, because you need leadership and coaching staff on the same page. That's why Lynn Dunn made moves right after she got named to GM. Marianne Stanley had 9 games as head coach after Lynn Dunn got named to GM. Right? It just happens like that. So that's where the Fever are right now. A new head coach is coming. I don't know who it's going to be, although a lot of signs and reporting do point to one person who I just talked about a long time. If it happens, I will break that down as it comes. Amber Cox has started. I'd imagine when a coaching hire is made, we'll hear from her and the new coach. So lots more to come in Feverland this summer. There's a lot to come in Feverland all the time these days. But that is my quick-ish analysis on the Fever coaching search. On the next, you can find my story about Kelly Crosskopf's journey before building the Fever into what they were, and also my quick reaction to the Christie Sides move from the Fever, and when they do hire a new coach, I'll be writing about that as well. I'll put those links in the YouTube comment section. Thank you guys for watching. If you think I said something incorrect or you're curious about something about the W because you're a newer fan, feel free to ask. Happy to answer as many as I can. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something. I'll be back when it is required in Feverland, which could be very soon.